The Galactic Council chamber floated in the dead space between stars, a massive structure that had witnessed 1,000 years of peace. Today that peace trembled like a dying star. Ambassador Krieg of the Valthor Empire stood before the assembled representatives, his forearms gesturing wildly as he spoke. His silver skin had turned pale, almost white with fear. Behind him, holographic images flickered, showing the wreckage of 3 Valthor warships. The metal was twisted, melted in places, and the damage patterns made no sense to anyone who looked at them. They were only patrol vessels, Krieg said, his voice breaking. We thought we were investigating a simple cargo ship. One vessel, alone, no escort, no weapons visible on our scans. The council chamber remained silent. Every species present knew what was coming next. They had all heard the warnings, the stories, the legends that had begun spreading through the galaxy like wildfire over the past decade. Krieg continued, his hands shaking as he manipulated the hologram. The ship was marked with the symbol we had been told to avoid, a blue planet with white clouds surrounded by stars. The humans call it Earth. We thought the warnings were exaggerated. We thought they were afraid of competition in the trade routes. A low murmur spread through the chamber. The insectoid Chithuri clicked their mandibles nervously. The gaseous Nephali dimmed their lights. Even the ancient keepers who had seen empires rise and fall shifted uncomfortably in their containment fields. The Valthor had made the mistake that dozens of other species had whispered about in dark corners of space stations. They had attacked a human vessel. Krieg's primary arm pointed at the hologram and the image changed. Now it showed the moment of contact. The human cargo ship, barely 200 meters long, faced 3 Valthor destroyers, each one 5 times its size. The Valthor ships had powered up their weapons, standard procedure for boarding a suspicious vessel. We sent the standard hail, Krieg explained. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Shut down your engines. The response came in perfect Valthor language. The voice was calm, almost bored. He pressed a button and an audio recording filled the chamber. A human voice. Male, speaking with an accent none of them could place. This is Captain James Rodriguez of the UESV Thunderchild. You are attempting to stop a registered human merchant vessel in neutral space. This is your only warning. Stand down and move away or you will be engaged. Several council members gasped. The audacity of a small cargo ship threatening military destroyers seemed insane. Krieg's expression darkened. Commander Thax thought it was a bluff. He gave the order to disable their engines with a warning shot. The hologram showed the Valthor destroyer firing a plasma bolt, carefully aimed to miss the human ship by mere meters. It was meant to be intimidating, a show of force. The plasma bolt flew through space, its blue light illuminating the darkness. Then the human ship moved. It didn't accelerate normally. There was no buildup, no gradual increase in speed. One moment it was stationary. The next it had shifted 30 degrees to starboard. The movement was so fast that the visual sensors barely caught it. The plasma bolt sailed harmlessly past. Impossible, whispered Council Head Marn, a being of pure crystallized thought. That acceleration would have turned any crew into paste. Krieg nodded. That's what we thought too. Commander Thax ordered all 3 ships to surround the human vessel and fire containment nets. We wanted to capture them, to understand their technology. The hologram showed what happened next and several council members looked away. The human ship didn't run. It didn't call for help. Instead, panels opened along its hull, panels that their scans had identified as simple cargo doors. From those openings emerged weapons that the Valthor sensors had somehow missed. Railguns, plasma cannons, missile pods, and something else. Something that glowed with a strange purple light. The first Valthor destroyer fired its containment net, a web of energy designed to shut down ship systems. The net touched the human vessel and simply vanished, absorbed into the hull like water into sand. Then the human ship fired back. The railgun spoke first, launching projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Valthor shields, designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving missiles, might as well have been made of paper. The projectiles tore through the first destroyer's shield and punched holes through its armor plating. Atmosphere vented into space and the ship began to list. The plasma cannons followed, streams of superheated matter that carved glowing lines across the second destroyer's hull. But it was the purple light that truly terrified the Valthor crews. The weapon, whatever it was, fired a beam that hit the third destroyer's power core. The ship didn't explode. It simply stopped existing in that location and appeared somewhere else, 3,000 kilometers away, tumbling through space with its systems completely dead. Later analysis would show that every electronic component on that ship had been fused into useless slag. The entire engagement lasted 18 seconds. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the comm again. Still calm, still bored. This is your second warning. The next one won't be so gentle. Leave now. The remaining functional Valthor destroyer ran. Commander Thax, his pride shattered along with his fleet, ordered a full retreat at maximum speed. The human ship watched them go, made no move to pursue, and then continued on its original course as if nothing had happened. Krieg finished his report, his body sagging with exhaustion and shame. The Thunderchild was just a cargo ship, a merchant vessel. It was carrying industrial equipment to a mining colony, and it destroyed 2 of our destroyers and disabled a 3rd in less than half a minute. The council chamber erupted in voices, each species shouting questions and concerns. How could a cargo ship carry such weapons? How could any crew survive those acceleration forces? What kind of species builds merchant vessels that can destroy military warships? Council Head Marn raised her crystalline form and silence fell across the chamber. Her voice echoed in every mind present. The question we must ask ourselves is not how they did this. The question is why. Why does humanity arm even their civilian vessels so heavily? An elderly human stepped forward from the observation gallery. Ambassador Sarah Chen, humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, had been quiet until now. She was a small woman, barely reaching the chest height of most species present, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She moved with the careful deliberation of someone who had lived through wars. "You want to know why?" she asked, her voice soft but carrying clearly through the chamber. "Because we learned a long time ago, long before we reached the stars, that predators exist everywhere. We learned that the only way to ensure peace is to be prepared for war. We learned that the best way to protect the innocent is to make sure no one dares to threaten them in the first place." She walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside Krieg's hologram of the destroyed ships. Every human vessel, from the smallest personal shuttle to the largest colony ship, carries weapons. Every human child learns to fight before they learn to write. Every human settlement, no matter how peaceful, has defenses that can hold off an army. Ambassador Chen turned to face the council directly. "You call it paranoia. We call it survival." And Captain Rodriguez followed protocol perfectly. He gave a warning. He demonstrated capability. He used minimum necessary force. No Valthor died in that engagement, though they easily could have. She paused, letting that sink in. Humanity has been in space for barely a century. In that time, we've been attacked 47 times by various species who thought we looked weak, who thought our ships were easy prey, who thought one small species from a backwater planet couldn't possibly be a threat. The hologram changed again, showing a star map. Red dots marked locations throughout the galaxy, each one representing an attack on human vessels. 47 times we've defended ourselves. 47 times we've given warnings first. And 47 times we've been forced to demonstrate why attacking humans is a very, very bad idea. Ambassador Chen's expression hardened. "So let me make something absolutely clear to this council, and to every species represented here. Do not attack human vessels. Do not threaten human colonies. Do not mistake our desire for peace as weakness." She gestured at the wrecked Valthor ships in the hologram. This was mercy. This was us being gentle. This was us giving you the chance to learn from your mistake and walk away. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the background hum of the station's life support seemed to quiet. Ambassador Chen's final words hung in the air like a prophecy. The galaxy spoke nervously about humanity's nature. "Now you know, we came seeking friends and trade partners. But if you insist on making us enemies, you will learn exactly what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. And I promise you, the galaxy has never seen fury like what humanity can unleash when we choose to voice ourselves in flames." 3 weeks after Ambassador Chen's speech, the warning had spread to every corner of civilized space. Trade stations buzzed with rumors. Military academies analyzed the Thunderchild engagement from every angle. Xenobiologists studied human psychology, trying to understand a species that seemed built for war yet constantly sought peace. The Kryn ascendancy, however, chose to ignore the warnings. Admiral Vexthor of the Kryn military stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the scan results with growing satisfaction. Before him floated a human colony ship, the New Horizon, making its slow way toward an unclaimed system in the outer rim. The vessel was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, shaped like a rotating cylinder. According to their intelligence, it carried 15,000 human colonists in cryogenic suspension, along with everything needed to establish a new settlement. A colony ship, Vexthor said, his reptilian features twisting into what passed for a smile among his kind. Not a warship, not even a merchant vessel with hidden weapons, just civilians sleeping in their pods, dreaming of their new home. His tactical officer, a younger Kryn named Salith, shifted nervously. Admiral, the warnings about engaging human vessels were quite specific. Perhaps we should reconsider. Vexthor's tail lashed in irritation. Warnings from a species that's been in space for barely 100 years? The Kryn have ruled this sector for 3,000 years. We are apex predators, Salith. We do not fear prey animals, no matter what weapons they manage to steal or copy from their betters. The Eternal Dominion was one of 5 dreadnoughts surrounding the New Horizon. Each ship was a masterpiece of Kryn engineering, bristling with weapons that had conquered a dozen star systems. Vexthor had brought overwhelming force specifically to make a point. Humanity needed to learn their place in the galactic hierarchy, and the Kryn would be the ones to teach them. Open a channel, Vexthor commanded. Let's see how brave these humans are when they wake up to find themselves surrounded. The communication officer worked his console, and a holographic screen flickered to life. It showed the interior of the New Horizons bridge, and Vexthor was momentarily surprised to see it was occupied. A human woman sat in the captain's chair wearing a simple gray uniform. She had dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that looked at Vexthor without a trace of fear. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UECS New Horizon," she said calmly. "State your business." Vexthor enjoyed this part. The moment when lesser species realized they were caught. "I am Admiral Vexthor of the Kryn Ascendancy. Your vessel has entered Kryn territorial space without authorization. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your colonists will be evaluated for usefulness. Those we deem acceptable will be allowed to continue under Kryn oversight. The rest will be returned to human space." Captain Vasquez didn't blink. "Admiral, you are mistaken. This system is unclaimed neutral territory according to the Galactic Council's star charts. We have every right to be here." "The Galactic Council," Vexthor sneered, "is a gathering of weaklings who have forgotten the natural order of things. The strong take what they wish. The weak submit or perish. These are the only laws that matter." Something changed in Captain Vasquez's expression. The calmness remained, but underneath it, Vexthor saw something else. Not fear, not anger, something colder, something patient. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I'm going to give you one chance to reconsider. Turn your ships around and leave this system. Forget you saw us. I promise that humanity will not pursue this matter further." Vexthor laughed, a harsh barking sound. "You're surrounded by 5 dreadnoughts, human. Your colony ship is defenseless. You have no weapons, no military escort, nothing but 15,000 sleeping civilians. And you dare to threaten me?" Captain Vasquez leaned forward slightly. "I'm not threatening you, Admiral. I'm trying to save your life and the lives of your crews. Please, just leave." The pleading tone in her voice made Vexthor's decision easy. She was afraid, trying to hide it behind false bravado. "Perfect. You have 10 minutes to power down your engines," he said. "After that, we will disable your ship by force." Vexthor out. He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "Salith, I want targeting solutions on their engine sections. We'll cripple them gently. I want them helpless but intact." Salith worked his console, his hands shaking slightly. "Admiral, I'm reading something strange. The colony ship's power signature is changing. It's increasing exponentially. They're probably trying to run," Vexthor said dismissively. "Let them try. No colony ship can outrun a Kryn dreadnought." But the New Horizon didn't run. Instead, it did something that made every sensor on the Eternal Dominion scream warnings. The massive cylinder began to split open like a flower blooming. Sections of hull that had appeared to be simple plating folded back, revealing structures beneath, gun emplacements, missile batteries, shield generators, and at the center something that made Salith gasp in shock. "Admiral, those aren't cargo bays. They're hangar decks." "I'm reading launch signatures. Dozens of them. No, hundreds." Vexthor watched in growing disbelief as fighters poured out of the New Horizon like angry insects from a disturbed hive. They were small, agile craft, each one barely 30 meters long. But there were so many of them. The swarm formed up around the colony ship in perfect formation, creating a defensive sphere. How many? Vexthor demanded. 643 fighters, Admiral. And they're still launching. Captain Vasquez's face reappeared on the screen uninvited. Admiral, your 10 minutes are up. I gave you a chance. You chose poorly. You think a swarm of fighters can stop 5 dreadnoughts? Vexthor roared. Open fire! All ships, full offensive barrage! The Kryn dreadnoughts unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Missiles streaked toward the new horizon in their hundreds. Energy beams lanced through space, each one capable of cutting a battleship in half. The human fighters moved. They scattered and reformed with precision that seemed impossible. Their formation broke into dozens of smaller groups, each one working in perfect coordination. They didn't try to block the incoming fire. Instead, they dodged, weaved, and danced through the barrage like they knew exactly where each shot would be before it was fired. Then they struck back. The fighters carried weapons that seemed too large for their small frames. Missiles that tracked with impossible accuracy, laser cannons that punched through shields like they weren't there, and something else. Something that the Kryn had never encountered before. A dozen fighters focused on the Eternal Dominion's forward shields. They fired in sequence, each shot hitting the exact same point. The shield held for the first shot and the second and the third. By the 7th shot, it was flickering. By the 10th, it collapsed entirely. Shield failure, forward section, Salith shouted. How did they know exactly where to hit? Vexthor had no answer. He watched in horror as more fighters swarmed his sister ships, taking them apart with surgical precision. The Eternal Victory lost its engine pods, crippled but not destroyed. The Eternal Glory's weapon systems went offline, disabled by targeted strikes. The Eternal Conquest tried to retreat, but human fighters cut off its escape route. And through it all, the New Horizon itself hadn't fired a single shot. Captain Vasquez's voice came through the speakers, calm and sad. You could have left, Admiral. You could have believed the warnings. But you chose to see our colony ship and assume it was helpless. That was your mistake. Vexthor's bridge shuddered as another volley hit home. Systems sparked and failed around him. His mighty flagship, pride of the Kryn fleet, was being taken apart by fighters a fraction of its size. Humans don't send defenseless ships into unknown space, Admiral, Vasquez continued. Every vessel we build, from the smallest shuttle to the largest colony transport, can defend itself. Those 15,000 colonists sleeping in their pods, half of them are military reservists. The other half are civilians who've been trained to fight if necessary. We're a colony ship, yes, but we're also a fully functional carrier battle group. Another explosion rocked the Eternal Dominion. Vexthor fell from his command chair, his pride shattered along with his ship. You wanted to know why the galaxy speaks nervously about humanity? Vasquez asked. It's because we remember our history. We remember the predators on our homeworld, the ones that hunted us when we were weak. We remember the wars we fought among ourselves, the ones that nearly destroyed our entire species. We learned to survive by becoming stronger than anything that threatened us. The tactical display showed all 5 Kryn dreadnoughts crippled now, floating in space with minimal power. Not destroyed, not exploded into debris, just completely, utterly defeated. The human fighters circled them like sharks, waiting for any sign of continued aggression. I gave you a warning, Admiral. I tried to save you, but you mistook mercy for weakness. That's the last mistake you'll make regarding humanity. Vexthor pulled himself back to his feet, using his command chair for support. His ship was dead in space, his fleet destroyed, his reputation ruined. All because he had thought a colony ship would be an easy target. Captain Vasquez's expression softened slightly. Your crews are alive, Admiral. Your ships can be repaired. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at the insistence of the Kryn Ascendancy. Admiral Vexthor's report had sent shockwaves through the established powers, and now they demanded answers. The massive chamber was packed with representatives from 200 species, all of them wanting to understand how the mighty Kryn had been so thoroughly humiliated. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the center of the speaking platform, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle. She looked tired, older than she had just weeks ago. The weight of representing humanity in a galaxy that was beginning to fear them showed in every line of her face. You summoned me here to explain humanity's actions, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Very well. Let me tell you a story about why we are the way we are. The holographic displays shifted, showing not the battle with the Kryn, but something else, a blue and green planet, beautiful and vibrant. Earth. 300,000 years ago, our ancestors were not apex predators. We were prey. We were hunted by creatures stronger, faster, and better armed than us. Saber-toothed cats that could kill us with a single bite. Cave bears that stood 3 meters tall. Predatory birds with wingspans wider than we were tall. The images changed, showing ancient humans huddled in caves creating fire, crafting weapons from stone. We survived not because we were strong, but because we were smart. We learned to work together. We learned to use tools. We learned to turn our environment into weapons. And slowly, over thousands of years, we went from prey to predator. Chen paused, letting the council members absorb this. But that was just the beginning. As we evolved, we faced new threats. Not from animals, but from each other. We are a species that has been at war with itself for our entire recorded history. We know every horror that war can bring because we have inflicted those horrors on ourselves. The holographic display shifted again, showing scenes from human history. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval castles under siege, world wars with tanks and aircraft, nuclear explosions mushrooming over cities. We nearly destroyed ourselves, Chen said quietly. More than once. We created weapons so terrible that using them would mean the end of our species. And we came within minutes of doing exactly that during what we call the Cold War. The entire planet held hostage by the threat of complete annihilation. A new voice spoke up from the council. It was Elder Thon of the Peaceful Collective, a species known for their absolute pacifism. Then how did you survive? How did you move past such violence? Chen smiled sadly. We didn't move past it, Elder Thon. We learned to control it. We learned that the best way to prevent war is to make war so terrible that no one dares to start one. We call it deterrence. Peace through strength, she gestured, and the displays showed humanity's first steps into space. Crude rockets, primitive stations, ships that looked fragile and clumsy compared to what other species built. When we finally reached beyond our planet, we were so hopeful. We thought perhaps out here among the stars we would find peace. We thought we could leave our violent nature behind. The images changed to show the first contact between humans and the Gathics, a species of traders. What should have been a historic moment of peaceful cooperation, instead it showed Gathics pirates attacking the human exploration vessel, killing half the crew before the survivors managed to fight them off. That was our introduction to the galaxy, Chen said bitterly. First contact and we were attacked. 47 times since then, as I mentioned before. 47 different species decided that humans looked weak, looked profitable, looked easy to conquer or enslave or rob. Representative Calyx of the Gathics Trade Federation spoke up, his tentacles writhing in agitation. That was a rogue element. The Gathics government condemned those actions. After it happened, Chen shot back. After your pirates had already killed 16 of my people, your condemnation meant nothing to their families. She took a breath, visibly calming herself. But you're right. Not all of those 47 incidents were official acts of war. Some were pirates, some were rogue elements, some were simply misunderstandings. And you responded to misunderstandings with overwhelming force? Demanded General Croth of the Unified Armies, his massive form bristling with indignation. No, Chen said firmly. We responded with measured force. We gave warnings. We demonstrated capability. We used the minimum force necessary to protect ourselves. The Valthor lost no lives when they attacked the Thunderchild. The Kryn fleet was crippled but not destroyed, and every single crew member survived. If we had truly wanted to voice ourselves in flames, as you put it, those fleets would be debris fields, not salvageable wrecks. She walked to the edge of the platform, looking up at the assembled representatives. You want to know why we arm our colony ships? Why our cargo vessels carry weapons that can destroy warships? Why even our civilian transports have military-grade shields and defensive systems? Chen's voice grew harder. Because we will never, ever be helpless again. Because we refuse to be prey. Because when we send our children out into the darkness to build new homes on distant worlds, we will not let them be slaughtered by anyone who thinks humans are easy targets. The chamber erupted in voices. Some angry, some frightened, all of them talking at once. Chen waited for the noise to die down before continuing. I understand that our nature makes you uncomfortable. I understand that a species willing and able to defend itself with such force is frightening. But ask yourselves this. In all the times we have been attacked, have we ever pursued revenge? Have we ever struck first? Have we ever declared war on any of you? Silence fell across the chamber. No, Chen answered her own question. We haven't. Every single engagement has been defensive. Every single time we gave warnings. Every single time we tried to de-escalate. And every single time we were forced to defend ourselves because someone decided we looked like easy prey. Elder Thon spoke again, his voice troubled. But surely there must be another way. Surely peace can be achieved through understanding and communication, not through weapons and threats. Chen's expression softened as she looked at the peaceful elder. I wish that were true. I truly do. But the galaxy has taught us otherwise. Your own species, Elder Thon, was nearly wiped out by the Zarek swarm 60 years ago. Do you remember who saved you? Thon's light dimmed slightly. The Terran defense fleet arrived and drove off the swarm. And how did we drive them off? Chen asked gently. With overwhelming force, Thon admitted quietly. You destroyed their hive ships and sent the survivors fleeing back into dark space. We saved your species because we had the capability to do so. Because when you desperately needed warriors to stand between you and extinction, we were there. We were ready. We were armed and trained and willing to fight so that you could continue to pursue your peaceful ways. Chen turned to address the entire council again. This is what you don't understand about humanity. We don't want war. We desperately want peace. But we have learned through countless bitter lessons that peace only exists for those strong enough to defend it. The weak do not get peace. They get conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. Another representative spoke up, this one from the hive minds of Sector 7. So you would turn the galaxy into an arms race? Every species building bigger weapons, stronger ships, until one day someone makes a mistake and we destroy everything? No, Chen said firmly. We would turn the galaxy into a place where attacking peaceful ships is so costly, so dangerous, so utterly foolish that no one does it anymore. We want to create a peace based not on hope and good intentions, but on the certain knowledge that aggression will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. She manipulated the controls, and the hologram changed one final time. It showed the current state of human space. Dozens of colonies, hundreds of ships, trade routes stretching across multiple sectors. And nowhere in all that territory were there any military conflicts. No pirates, no raiders, no one attacking human vessels. Look at what we've achieved, Chen said. In the century since we entered space, human ships have become the safest in the galaxy. Our trade routes are secure. Our colonies are peaceful. Not because we're the strongest, but because everyone knows that attacking us costs more than they could possibly gain. That's not peace, General Croth rumbled. That's intimidation. Call it what you want, Chen replied. But our children sleep safely at night. Our merchants travel without fear. Our explorers chart new systems knowing that if they call for help, it will come with enough firepower to level a planet if necessary. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. Humanity is not your enemy. We came to the stars seeking friends, trading partners, and allies. We will honor every treaty, respect every border, and follow every law that applies to us. But we will also defend ourselves without hesitation or mercy if attacked. And if that makes you nervous, if that makes the galaxy speak with fear about humanity, then good. Because that nervousness, that fear, that healthy respect for what we're capable of is what keeps the peace. It's what prevents incidents like the Valthor attack or the Kryn attempt at conquest. Ambassador Chen's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but every being in the chamber heard her clearly. 6 months passed after Ambassador Chen's speech, and the galaxy settled into an uneasy routine. Human ships moved through space unmolested, their reputation as dangerous prey keeping most predators at bay. Trade flourished. New colonies were established. For a brief time, it seemed that Chen's vision of peace through strength was actually working. Then the Jothic arrived. They came from beyond the galactic rim, from a region of space that no civilization had successfully mapped. The Jothic were an ancient race older than the Galactic Council itself, and they had one driving purpose: conquest. They had destroyed civilizations before the current galactic powers had even discovered fire. They had turned entire star systems into graveyards, and they had never, in their long history, been defeated. The first anyone knew of their arrival was when 3 star systems along the outer rim went dark. No communications, no distress signals. One moment those systems were alive with activity, the next they were simply gone, swallowed by something the sensors couldn't properly define. The Galactic Council's response was predictable. They called an emergency session, debated what to do, and ultimately decided to send an investigation fleet to determine what had happened. The fleet consisted of warships from 12 different species, including 5 from the powerful Kryn Ascendancy, still eager to prove they were not as weak as their defeat by humanity had suggested. The investigation fleet never came back. Admiral Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UESV Indomitable, humanity's newest and most powerful warship, reading the intelligence reports with growing concern. The Indomitable was different from most human vessels. While other ships pretended to be merchants or colonists or peaceful explorers, the Indomitable made no such pretense. It was pure warship, bristling with weapons, armored like a fortress and crewed by some of humanity's finest military personnel. "Tell me about the Jathic," Santos said to her intelligence officer. Commander Park brought up a holographic display showing fragmentary data. "We don't have much, Admiral. The Galactic Council's historical archives mention them only in legends, a species that appears every few thousand years, conquers everything in their path, then vanishes back into the darkness. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They simply destroy." Santos studied the limited images they had managed to recover from the investigation fleet's final transmissions. The Jathic ships were massive, organic-looking things that seemed to shift and move even when stationary. They used weapons that defied conventional physics, tearing through shields and armor like they weren't there. "How many systems have they taken now?" Santos asked. 17, Park replied grimly. "And they're accelerating. At their current rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 3 months. The Galactic Council is in complete chaos. Half the member species are preparing to evacuate their home systems. The other half are arguing about whether to fight or surrender." Santos turned to her tactical officer. "And us, what are humanity's orders?" Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked up from his console. "The Admiralty wants us to observe and report. No engagement unless human colonies or vessels are directly threatened. They don't want us getting dragged into a war that isn't ours." "A war that isn't ours," Santos repeated quietly. She walked to the forward viewport, looking out at the stars. "Commander Park, show me the Jathic's projected advance route." The hologram shifted, showing a red line snaking through the galaxy. Santos's jaw tightened as she saw where it led. The route would take the Jathic directly through the peaceful collective's territory. Elder Than's people, the species that had no weapons, no military, no way to defend themselves. "They'll be wiped out," Santos said. "The collective will be extinct within a week once the Jathic reach their space." "The collective knew the risks of absolute pacifism," Jackson said, though his tone suggested he didn't like it any more than Santos did. "We can't save everyone, Admiral." Santos turned back to her crew. "Get me a secure channel to Ambassador Chen, and prepare the ship for combat operations. If the Admiralty doesn't like what I'm about to do, they can court-martial me after we win." Ambassador Chen's face appeared on the screen 20 minutes later. She was in her office on the council station, and she looked even more exhausted than the last time Santos had seen her. "Admiral Santos," Chen said, "I assume you're calling about the Jathic situation?" "I am. Ma'am, I'm requesting permission to engage." Chen was quiet for a moment. "You understand that Earth's government wants us to stay out of this? That they believe humanity has no obligation to defend species that have shown us little friendship?" "With respect, Ambassador, that's exactly wrong," Santos said firmly. "We've spent the last 6 months telling the galaxy that we're not monsters, that we only use force to defend ourselves. If we sit back and watch the Jathic destroy billions of lives because it's not our problem, then we become exactly what they fear we are. We become the species that only cares about itself." Chen's expression remained neutral, but Santos saw something flicker in her eyes. "Go on." "The peaceful collective is going to be hit first," Santos continued. "Elder Than's people saved us a seat at the Galactic Council when most species wanted to keep us out. They've been some of our few genuine allies, and we're going to let them die because our government is playing politics? What are you proposing?" Chen asked. Santos straightened. "The Indomitable is one ship, but we're designed to fight entire fleets. Give me permission to position ourselves in the collective's space. If the Jathic come through, we'll be there to meet them. One ship sending a message that humanity doesn't abandon its friends." Chen was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. "Admiral, if I give you that permission and you fail, humanity will be blamed for escalating the situation. If you succeed, we'll be blamed for not sending more ships to help other species. Either way, Earth's government will be furious with both of us. Yes, ma'am, Santos agreed. But we'll be able to look at ourselves in the mirror. A ghost of a smile crossed Chen's face. You know, Admiral, when I made that speech about humanity voicing itself in flames, I was trying to scare people into leaving us alone. I never imagined we'd end up having to prove we're not actually the monsters I described. Maybe that's the point, Santos said. Maybe being strong enough to be monsters but choosing not to be is what actually makes us civilized. Chen nodded slowly. I can't give you official authorization, but I can tell you that it will take approximately 6 hours for your message to reach Earth, and for them to send back orders countermanding any actions you might take. What happens in those 6 hours is entirely at your discretion. Santos smiled. Understood, Ambassador. Thank you. Admiral, Chen said as Santos moved to end the call. Make sure you win, because if you don't, the galaxy will see humanity's strength as arrogance and will lose any chance at building real alliances. I don't plan on losing, Santos replied. Indomitable out. She turned to her crew and the bridge seemed to come alive with renewed energy. Helm, set course for the Peaceful Collective's home system. Maximum speed. Tactical, I want every weapon system checked and ready. Engineering, push the reactors to 110%. We're going to war. The Indomitable leaped forward, its engines burning bright in the darkness. Behind Santos, Commander Park spoke quietly. Admiral, one ship against the fleet that destroyed the investigation force. Those are terrible odds. Santos looked at the tactical display, showing the approximate size of the Jathic force. 30 capital ships, each one larger than the Indomitable. Hundreds of smaller vessels. Weapons that no one fully understood. It should have been impossible. Commander, Santos said, there's something you need to understand about humanity. We've been fighting impossible odds since before we left our home planet. We fought nature when it was stronger than us. We fought each other when it nearly destroyed us. We fought the darkness between stars when everyone said we'd never make it. She gestured at the view screen, where the stars streaked past as they accelerated toward the collective system. One human ship against impossible odds? That's not a terrible situation. That's just Tuesday for us. The bridge crew laughed, tension easing slightly. Santos continued, her voice growing more serious. But more than that, we're not alone. The Indomitable was designed specifically for this. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology on this ship was built by people who remembered what it was like to be prey, who swore we would never be helpless again. She pulled up the ship's specifications on her command console. We have weapons the Jathic have never encountered. Shields designed using mathematics they won't understand. Tactics developed from 300,000 years of humans learning to fight things bigger and stronger than us. Santos looked at each member of her bridge crew in turn. And we have something else. We have a choice. We could run. We could hide. We could let the Peaceful Collective burn and tell ourselves it's not our problem. But we're not going to do that. Because humanity learned a long time ago that the true measure of a civilization isn't how strong it is. It's what it chooses to do with that strength. She sat down in her command chair, the weight of her decision settling on her shoulders. The galaxy is nervous about humanity. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Peaceful Collective's home system, and what Admiral Santos saw made her blood run cold. The system was already under attack. The Jathic had arrived early, their massive organic ships spreading through the system like a plague. 3 of the Collective's orbital habitats were already burning, their delicate structures no match for weapons designed to crack planets. The Collective had no warships, no defenses, nothing but evacuation transports desperately trying to flee with as many civilians as possible. Status report, Santos snapped. 32 Jathic capital ships, hundreds of smaller vessels, Tactical reported. They're systematically destroying everything in the system. The Collective's evacuation fleet is trying to reach the jump point, but the Jathic are cutting them off. Santos watched as a Collective transport, carrying thousands of civilians, was torn apart by a Jathic beam weapon. There were no escape pods, no survivors, just debris and the screams that would never reach them through the vacuum of space. How many transports are left? Santos asked, her voice tight. 17, Commander Park replied, carrying approximately 200,000 civilians total. They're the last survivors of a population of 12 billion. 12 billion. The number was incomprehensible. An entire civilization, Billions of peaceful beings who had never raised a weapon against anyone, being systematically exterminated, and Santos had one ship to try to stop it. All hands battle stations, Santos ordered. Helm, take us into the system. Full combat speed. Tactical. Target the Jothic ships that are blocking the evacuation fleet's escape route. We're going to punch a hole for those transports to get through. Admiral, Jackson said carefully, we're outnumbered 30-1. Once we engage, we'll draw every Jothic ship in the system. We might save the transports, but we won't survive. Santos looked at him steadily. I didn't come here expecting to survive, Commander. I came here to do the right thing. Now carry out your orders. The Indomitable surged forward, and for the first time the Jothic seemed to notice them. Several of the massive organic ships turned toward the human vessel, their weapons beginning to charge. They were curious, Santos realized. One small ship, moving to engage a vastly superior force. The Jothic probably thought it was suicide. They were about to learn they were half right. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Tactical announced. Santos leaned forward in her chair. All batteries fire at will. Target their propulsion systems and weapons. I want those ships crippled, not destroyed. We need to move fast. The Indomitable opened fire, and the Jothic learned their first lesson about human weapons. The railguns fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, moving so fast that the Jothic's organic shields barely registered them before they punched through. The plasma cannons followed, superheated streams that carved glowing wounds in the alien ships' hulls. But it was the human missiles that truly surprised them. These weren't simple explosives. Each missile carried a compact nuclear warhead, a technology most species had abandoned as too primitive. The Jothic had never encountered them before. They didn't know to fear the brilliant white flashes that blossomed against their ships, the radiation that seared through their organic systems, the electromagnetic pulses that disrupted their strange biology-based technology. 3 Jothic ships died in the first volley. 2 more were crippled, their weapons offline, their drives failing. The path to the jump point opened, and Santos didn't hesitate. Message to the collective transports. This is Admiral Santos of the human warship Indomitable. Your escape route is clear. Jump now and don't look back. Elder Thon's face appeared on the screen, his peaceful features twisted with grief and shock. Admiral Santos, you came. You're saving us. Get your people to safety, Elder, Santos said firmly. We'll hold them here as long as we can. But you'll die, Thon said, his voice breaking. Your crew will die. We taught you that all life is precious, and now you're sacrificing yours for ours. Santos smiled, even as her ship shook from a Jothic weapon impact. Elder Thon, you taught us that peace is worth fighting for. Now go. Honor our sacrifice by surviving. The collective transports fled toward the jump point, their engines pushed to maximum, and the Jothic, enraged by this interference, turned their full attention toward the Indomitable. All Jothic vessels are targeting us, Commander Park reported. We've got incoming fire from multiple directions. Evasive maneuvers, Santos ordered. Keep us moving. Tactical, keep hitting them. We need to keep their attention on us until those transports are safe. The Indomitable danced through space, its pilot executing maneuvers that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The Jothic weapons were powerful, but they were designed to hit slow-moving stations and planets, not a vessel designed by a species that had been dodging predators for 300,000 years. Still, some shots got through. The shields held, flickered, failed in sections. Armor plating melted under alien weapons. The ship shuddered with each hit, and damage reports started flooding in. Engineering reports power loss to the port-side weapons, Park called out. Shields at 60% and falling. Reroute power from life support to shields, Santos ordered. We don't need to breathe if we're dead. Another salvo from the Indomitable took down 2 more Jothic ships. The human vessel was making them pay for every hit they landed, but the math was simple and brutal. One ship against dozens couldn't last forever. Collective transports have reached the jump point, communications reported. They're beginning to jump out. Good, Santos said. How many? All 17, Admiral. 200,000 civilians safely away. Santos allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 200,000 lives saved. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough when 12 billion had died. But it was something. It meant Elder Thon's species would survive. They would remember. They would rebuild. Shields at 30%, Park announced. Admiral, we need to withdraw. We've done what we came to do. Santos shook her head. We withdraw and the Jothic keep spreading. They hit another system, kill another few billion innocent people. That's not acceptable. She studied the tactical display. The Jothic had spread out to surround the Indomitable, but in doing so they had left their formation loose. And at the center of their fleet, Santos could see what appeared to be a command ship, larger than the others, covered in strange organic growths that pulsed with sickly light. Helm, plot a course directly through the enemy formation. Target that big ship in the center. Admiral, Jackson protested, that's suicide. We'll never make it. We don't need to make it, Santos replied calmly. We just need to get close enough. Engineering, how much antimatter do we have in reserve? The engineering officer's voice came through the speakers, confused. 4 kilograms, Admiral. But that's for emergency power only. If we use it, we won't be able to jump out of the system. We're not jumping out, Santos said. I want you to prepare to dump all of it into the reactor core and set it to overload. We're going to give the Jothic something to remember us by. The bridge went silent as her crew realized what she was planning. A ship-scale antimatter explosion detonated in the middle of the enemy fleet. It would destroy everything within thousands of kilometers, including the Indomitable itself. Commander Park spoke quietly. Admiral, that's a crew of 800 people. We have families, children waiting for us. Are you sure this is the only way? Santos looked at her crew, these men and women who had followed her into hell without hesitation. I won't order anyone to stay. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the escape pods before we make our run, you have my permission. You've already done more than anyone could ask. No one moved. Not a single member of her crew left their station. Jackson smiled grimly. We're with you, Admiral. All the way to the end. Santos felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. There would be time to cry later. Or there wouldn't. Either way, there was work to do. All hands, this is the Admiral, she announced over the ship-wide comm. We came here to save the peaceful collective. We succeeded. 200,000 innocent lives are safe because of what we did today. Now we're going to do something else. We're going to show the Jothic and the entire galaxy what happens when you threaten the innocent while humanity is watching. She paused, letting her words sink in. What we're about to do will echo through galactic history. Species will tell stories about the human warship that faced impossible odds and chose to fight anyway. They'll remember that when humanity voices itself in flames, it burns brightest in defense of others. Helm, take us in. Maximum speed. Engineering, prepare the antimatter overload. All weapons, fire at will. If we're going to die, let's make it count. The Indomitable accelerated directly toward the heart of the Jothic fleet. Every weapon on the ship blazed at once, a storm of fire that carved through enemy vessels. Railguns, plasma cannons, missiles, lasers, everything humanity had learned to build in 300,000 years of warfare, poured out in one final, glorious assault. The Jothic fired back, their weapons tearing into the human ship. Armor plating shattered. Sections of the hull breached. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every species, every faction, every voice in known space had gathered to witness what came next. The air was thick with tension, grief, and something else. Something that felt almost like shame. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before them, but she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives of the peaceful collective, wearing the mourning colors of their people. Elder Thon was there, his light dimmed with sorrow. And beside Chen stood Admiral Santos's family, her wife, her 2 teenage children, and her elderly mother who had survived Earth's darkest wars. Chen looked older than her years. The weight of losing 800 human lives, including one of humanity's finest officers, showed in every line of her face. She had not slept since receiving the news. She had not eaten. She had simply prepared for this moment, knowing that what she said here would define humanity's future in the galaxy. 6 months ago, Chen began, her voice hoarse but steady, I stood in this chamber and told you not to attack human vessels. I warned you that we would defend ourselves with overwhelming force. I told you that when humanity voices itself in flames, entire fleets burn. She paused, looking around at the assembled species. I was wrong. A murmur spread through the chamber. Chen continued. I was wrong because I made you fear us. I made you see humans as potential enemies, as barely controlled weapons waiting to explode. I thought that fear would keep the peace. I thought that making you nervous about our capabilities would protect our people. She gestured to the holographic display behind her, which showed the final moments of the Indomitable. The brave ship charging into impossible odds. The explosion that saved 200,000 lives at the cost of 800. Admiral Maria Santos and her crew proved me wrong. They showed the galaxy what humanity really is. Not monsters. Not weapons. Not a species to be feared. They showed you what we truly are, protectors. Elder Thon stepped forward, his voice filled with emotion. The peaceful collective existed for 15,000 years. We believed that all life was sacred, that violence was never the answer, that peace could be maintained through understanding and compassion alone. We were wrong too, the elder's light pulsed with sorrow. We were wrong because we believed our pacifism made us moral. We believed that refusing to fight made us better than species who built weapons. But when the Jothic came, when our people were dying by the billions, all our philosophy meant nothing. We had no way to protect ourselves, no way to save our children. Thon turned to look at Chen. Humanity saved us, not because they had to, not because we had made treaties or promises. They saved us because it was the right thing to do. Admiral Santos and her crew died so that my species could survive. They sacrificed everything for people who had judged them for being warriors. He faced the council again. The peaceful collective will never be the same. We have learned that peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is what the strong create when they choose to protect the weak. And humanity, despite all your fears, despite all your warnings, are the strongest protectors the galaxy has ever known. Ambassador Chen wiped her eyes, not bothering to hide her tears. When Admiral Santos disobeyed orders and took the Indomitable into the collective system, Earth's government was furious. They wanted to court-martial her. They said she had started a war that wasn't ours to fight. She looked at Santos's family, at the wife and children who would never see their loved one again. But Maria knew something that our politicians didn't understand. She knew that strength without compassion is tyranny. Power without purpose is just destruction. She knew that humanity's weapons, our ships, our willingness to fight, all of it means nothing if we only use it for ourselves. Chen turned back to the council. So I'm going to amend my warning from 6 months ago. Yes, do not attack human vessels. But that's not because we'll destroy you. It's because we'll defend ourselves, and in doing so we might have to hurt you, and we don't want to hurt anyone. She took a deep breath. But there's another warning I need to give now. If you attack the innocent, if you prey on the weak, if you threaten species that cannot defend themselves, then humanity will notice. And we will come. Not because we want war, not because we seek glory or conquest, but because we remember what it was like to be prey, and we will never let others suffer what we once did. The display changed, showing the aftermath of the battle. The Jothic fleet in retreat, the collective's transports safely reaching refugee stations, and at the center of it all, the expanding debris field that had once been the Indomitable and its crew. The Jothic are still out there, Chen said. They're wounded but not destroyed. They'll regroup. They'll come back. And when they do, humanity will be ready. But we won't be ready alone. She gestured to the representatives around the chamber. I'm formally requesting that the Galactic Council form a joint military alliance. Not to conquer, not to expand territory, but to defend, to protect, to make sure that what happened to the peaceful collective never happens to anyone else. You want us to become like you, a voice called out from the assembly. It was General Croth, his massive form standing at the Unified Army's platform. You want us to arm ourselves, to build weapons, to prepare for war. No, Chen replied firmly. I want you to be better than us. I want you to build a galaxy where strength is used to protect, not oppress, where weapons exist but are never needed, where the mere knowledge that the innocent are defended makes predators think twice before attacking. She walked closer to Croth's platform. General, your species has been at peace for 3 centuries. That's admirable. But that peace existed because no one threatened you. The moment the Jothic arrived, your ships were among the first destroyed in the investigation fleet. Your peace was built on hope and luck, not capability. And you think capability is better? Croth challenged. I think capability combined with restraint is better, Chen answered. Look at humanity's record. Yes, we've defended ourselves 47 times against attacks. Yes, we destroyed the Valthor ships and crippled the Kryn fleet. But in every case we gave warnings. We used minimum necessary force. We never pursued revenge or conquest. She pointed at the image of the Indomitable's sacrifice. And when it mattered most, when Admiral Santos had to choose between safety and duty, she chose to protect strangers. To save a species that wasn't hers. to give her life so that others could live. That's not the action of monsters. That's not the behavior of conquerors. Ambassador Chen's voice grew stronger. That's the behavior of guardians. And that's what I'm asking this galaxy to become. Not warriors, not soldiers. Guardians. Species that have the strength to fight but the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary. Elder Thon spoke again. The peaceful collective wishes to join this alliance. We cannot fight. We do not know how, but we can support those who defend us. We can provide medical aid, supplies, shelter. We can offer our worlds as safe havens. And we can teach something that warriors sometimes forget, that the goal of all fighting must be to create peace, not victory. One by one, other species began to speak. Some agreed immediately. Others expressed concerns. But slowly a consensus began to form. The Jothic had shown the galaxy that neutrality was no protection, that hoping for peace was not enough, that sometimes the only way to maintain civilization was to stand together against those who would destroy it. The Kryn ambassador stood, his bearing stiff with residual pride. The Kryn ascendancy was humiliated by humanity. Admiral Vexthor's defeat is taught as a lesson in our military academies. Never underestimate your enemy. But what happened to the peaceful collective taught us something else. Never abandon your allies. He looked directly at Chen. The Kryn will join this alliance, and we will work with humanity to ensure that Admiral Santos's sacrifice was not in vain. More species added their voices. The Valthor, the Gathics, even the hive minds of Sector 7, who had been suspicious of humanity from the beginning. The chamber filled with pledges of support, promises of cooperation, commitments to build something new. Council Head Marn, the being of crystallized thought, finally spoke. This council has existed for 1,000 years. In that time we have maintained peace through discussion, through law, through the hope that rational beings would choose cooperation over conflict. The Jothic proved that hope is not always enough. Her crystalline form pulsed with light. Humanity has shown us a different way, not through fear, though they are fearsome, not through domination, though they are powerful. They have shown us that the truly civilized species are those who have the capacity for violence but choose to use it only in defense of others. Therefore, this council accepts Ambassador Chen's proposal. We will form a joint galactic defense alliance. We will pool our resources, share our technology, and stand together against threats to all civilized species. And humanity, despite being one of our youngest members, will help lead this alliance. Chen bowed her head in acknowledgement. Thank you, Council Head. But there's one more thing we need to address. She turned to face Santos's family and her voice softened. Maria Santos died believing she was doing the right thing. She died protecting innocence. She died as a hero. But she also died disobeying direct orders from her government.